If anyone wants to know my thoughts on the looting being removed, I read through the post. I see it as a bigger problem than just looting, because I see it like CIG is giving in to Care Bears.
When you say looting removed, you mean instant and the shipboarding?
So no, so we're talking about item looting. Now, the way that it's been explained is that you won't be able to loot people's equipped items, right? And there's like understanding the language is important, because there's equipped items, and what was the other fucking word that they used?
You mean personal items like armor and stuff?
Yeah, so your equipped items are like your armor, your weapons, backpack, like that. However, it's in general, but it's a zero implementation. But the stuff in your inventory, you can loot. So this is a difference, is that when you go to loot someone, you're not going to be able to take their armor or weapons that they've got equipped. But if they've got weapons in their backpack, you can then take it. The problem is like tier 1 and tier 2 has us in this position where CIG is trying to set this stuff up so that players can recover, ship states, for example, where you've got all the stuff that you bought for a ship, all the components in that you bought. You then went into your ship and you equipped all the, you equipped the gun racks with all the different weapons, and you threw stuff into the ship itself, and your ship blows up and you want to recover all that, as opposed to having to go in and put everything back in there. You can reclaim it all in the insurance system.
But they haven't implemented that yet.
No, that's planned for the future. I guess I'll do an impromptu reaction stream on this. All right, there are we.
So if you want to go zero to hero piracy and you want to get all your gear from other players, that's basically been nobbled now.
You got to get it from the AI. Actually, I don't even know if you can do it from the AI, because I didn't even fucking mention that.
You could assume they're not gonna claim it back, but unless they thought of it. So you could assume it should work, but...
The problem with that is that if you take a ship and you want to revive the player, but make it so they're not a risk to you. I mean, what I've done in the past when I'm doing solo piracy, just for shits and giggles, I'll take all their armor and weapons, put them on the back of their ship and revive them, and then walk away.
Just won't be able to do that.
Yeah, so I'll just kill them. Yeah, there'll be no point letting people survive, right?
Right.
I know. It seems like a hack to get a certain feature into the game, which is nowhere near being ready.
I mean, it needs to start somewhere. Otherwise, we'll wait for 5 years before we have anything that resembles that. Also, they will probably miss half of the feature, half of like full of bugs. They will need people to complain, to get some outcry and all of that to come up with something that kind of makes sense, I guess.
So I'm doing an impromptu reaction stream, so you guys are more than welcome to give your input. So this is called Alpha 4.1, the first look at item recovery. That's the thing there. It's from Xylo. Right, so he says, hello everyone. As we prepare for the Evocati test phase for our upcoming Alpha 4.1 patch, we'd like to introduce the iterative release plan for item recovery, a long-awaited system that gives players more control over reclaiming their valuable gear after death. CitizenCon 2954, we shared our long-term design for crafting, insurance, and item ship recovery. If you need a refresher, both presentations are available on YouTube and will be helpful watch before diving into this post. Today we want to provide a more detailed breakdown of some of the iterative releases that will start to bring these plans to life. The initial tier 0 rollout will be fairly basic compared to the full system, but it marks a crucial first step. As we shared at CitizenCon, the complete item recovery system will be far more robust and nuanced, making gear management a core gameplay element. You'll be able to secure the items that matter most while still allowing room for piracy and emergent gameplay. We'll see. So first steps, Tier 0 implementation. With the initial rollout of item recovery in Alpha 4.1, internally referred to as Tier 0, you'll respawn with the exact gear you had equipped, which is underlined and emboldened, at the time of death. Emphasis on the term equipped, as this is different than what you may have had in your inventory. This includes equipped weapons, armor, magazines, and med pens, ensuring that your core loadout is retained. However, items stored in your inventory, such as your backpack or other containers, will remain on your corpse, making them available for looting or retrieval. While equipped items will also remain on your corpse too, they will not be interactable, preventing item duplication while still preserving the visual state of your character at the time of death. This approach helps mitigate item duplication issues in the initial implementation while laying the groundwork for future expansions of the system in Tier 1 and Tier 2, which you can read more about below. Important notes: items stored in your inventory, example items in your backpack, will not be protected and will remain on your corpse upon death, available to be looted/stolen by other players or retrieved by you. Items such as magazines and med pens that you have equipped can still be looted from your corpse. However, you will also respawn with these items, as duplication concerns for these types of consumable are less concerning at this stage.
What about on boards and that kind of stuff?
That will be in your inventory. If it's considered lootable,
you can wear them on your...
Yeah, it's possible that this stuff, like, if it's a consumable, that you will duplicate it, but if it's a certain type of consumable, that they may not allow it to be spawned on you. So if you're carrying, like, the executive hanger cards, for example, I don't know if you can equip those, can you? I thought they were only an inventory only item.
I thought you could equip them.
We would have to test it out, because if it ends up being the case, people will just print those, and it'll just take one person doing a contested zone round, like running through all the different contested zones, and then just backspace themselves in their hanger over and over again with them equipped to their armor, and they just keep getting them back, duplicating those items. If we approach this with a little bit of logic and faith in CIG's ability to think this through, that probably won't end up being the case. But I'm the optimist.
So I'm never gonna lose my scorched helmet again.
Yeah, that's right, Lever. You don't need to take risks. You don't have to worry about risks that you take.
Yeah, I'm gonna just jump in every single time.
Yeah, that's right.
I think I'm gonna abandon the backpack now. I'm just gonna run out with my armor, and that's it.
Yeah.
This is just so they don't have as many entities in the database. Like, who's gonna, like, I'm not gonna go and buy 20 suits of armor anymore.
No, but maybe there could still be a risk of losing stuff if they are very expensive. Like, if rare stuff is very expensive, you don't want to lose it.
Well, under these new game rules, that won't happen, right? Because if you never take the armor off.
But wouldn't you have to pay for the auto-equip thing based on what you were equipping?
I don't think so. That's the whole idea.
So we're still on the Tier 0 implementation. I believe what you're talking about, Daff, is Tier 1 or 2.
So T1, yeah.
So I'm still going through the bullet points here. So Tier 0 item recovery applies to all forms of respawning, whether in a medbed, on a ship, or at your assigned landing zone. That's a massive problem, I can tell you that now. It's good from the perspective that all the Care Bears who sit there and complain that losing the fucking like 30,000 credits worth of armor and weapons and stuff like that will respawn with their kit, so they'll be more inclined to actually kit up so that when we shoot them in the face they're not in a sperm suit anymore. It also means that there's no sort of deterrent from somebody just like continuously spawning in the bed over and over again. That whole Carrot Karen situation where old mate just kept waking up. He didn't even have his kit. So what's going to happen is like we're going to see people in Polarises and Carracks get killed, respawn, and ready to continue fighting. We're going to have to sit there and shoot them in the bed because we're trying to take control of their ship. And right now, respawning in-game has no penalty other than the loss of items, and that's been taken away here. So they're going to keep respawning to get back into the fight, and it's either we keep shooting them over and over again until they get tired of that, or they manage to somehow, die enough times that there's a bug and they are able to take out everybody else.
Yeah, I guess we would have to lay down in the beds and prevent respawn.
Yeah,
it's a race, and then you need to be many people boarding, and it's more complicated.
All right. To ensure that your weapon in active use is secured as an equipped item, it will automatically be stowed to your holster upon death. If you die within a landing zone, you will respawn with both your equipped gear and your inventory, example, belongings in your backpack. This is to help avoid you losing items of any kind should a death outside of your control happen. So here's something that I don't like about this whole landing zone thing, a death outside of your control. They're talking about bugs, I believe, when it comes to this sort of situation. But a death outside of your control happens a lot in this game because you can get shots by somebody else. That's not in your control. Somebody shooting at you, you're not controlling them, right? So every death is technically outside of your control, unless you're flying the ship and you ram into something, right? With tier 0, you'll respawn with your previously equipped gear already attached to your character. Scenario example.
I forgot.
Oh, go ahead.
A quick question. Yeah, could you remove the gear from someone that is in cap so that then you kill him and you respawn naked? Or he has to be dead in order to be looted?
According to these, because it doesn't cover that scenario, but according to what it's said here, anything that is equipped, which is their armor, and anything attached to their armor cannot be removed. They're not interactable. That's how it's explained.
I wonder if they'll do that for ship loadouts too. So say you want to do Polaris battles, you know, having a couple of ships in your Polaris hangar and having them automatically respawn in the Polaris would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I hope it won't take for 2 years because like the T1, I just saw the T1 that someone posted in our Discord and I thought, oh, that seems that it could be interesting, but it's true like the T0 is not so much.
A little bit depends on how long between T0 and T1 and so on there is.
Yeah, well, we're getting tier 0 in 4.1 according to this. Scenario example, while exploring, you loot a rifle and then store it in your backpack. If you die, that rifle will remain on your corpse, available for others to loot or for you to revisit your corpse and retrieve. However, the original rifle you had equipped to your character, in hand or holstered, at the time of death will be secured and respawned with you, right? Looking ahead, tier 1 and tier 2. While tier 0 lays the groundwork and provides some assurances that your equipped items are not lost, we are already actively developing tier 1 and tier 2 implementations. These future updates will add more depth to the system, including a viable path for piracy. Alright, tier 1, loadout and ship registration. Tier 1 will introduce the ability to register your gear and ships at kiosks or ASOP terminals. Important notes. Personal loadout, players can register their equipped items which can be reclaimed for a fee at specific kiosks or freight elevators. Ships and interiors. Ships along with their loadouts, decorations and locker contents can also be registered. They can then be reclaimed in the state they were previously registered at ASOP terminals for a price. Looting and bricked items. Once an item is looted, it remains usable until the original owner reclaims it or marks it as stolen. At that point, a dead man switch is activated, meaning it will cease to function after a period of time. Ooh. I'll talk about that in a minute.
Does that mean ships?
We don't know. It says items, so I'm going to assume that it's like guns and stuff that you loot. While a looted and or stolen bricked item is no longer usable, you can still sell them for credits. Pledged items are auto-registered and will never lose their registration status. They can always be claimed back, even if they were not manually registered. With tier 1, you will no longer respawn with your preserved gear already equipped. You'll need to visit a location, such as your freight elevator, to reclaim your registered items. We are developing a quality of life feature to allow you to re-equip your previous full loadout with one auto-equip button at this location. Additionally, with the implementation of tier 1, our current plan is to remove the ability to backspace out of dangerous scenarios as a way to retain gear. So, tier 0 is kind of like the bullshit magic. You can keep all your kit, almost, that we had for years in the early days, like back in 3.x days. Tier 1 is where they actually start delineating from this magic system, but they introduce a new magic system where items can essentially be remotely deactivated, right? Now, the extent of this is not really explained very well. So, looting and bricked items. A bricked item is just something that's been deactivated. Go ahead, Red.
Star Citizen and the Philosopher's Stone, I guess.
That's right. Sorcerer's Stone for the NA audience. So there's good parts in this, right? Like the personal loadouts, being able to register your loadouts. So that's them trying to take away some of the magic stuff. So you could buy a kit, not register it, and if you die, you lose it. However, and this is the thing, is like they don't talk about, or they don't delineate between equipped and inventory when they talk about the rest of the stuff. So your personal loadout right now, it can all go. Somebody can take it away and you've lost it. Tier 0 is everything that you got equipped can't be looted, but everything in your inventory can be, and you can respawn with all that. Tier 1, they take away the magic re-equipping when you respawn. However, they don't mention whether or not we'll be able to take that equipped items right? However, they mentioned this looting and bricked item. So once stuff has been reclaimed, it activates a dead man switch and just bricks the item. So I don't know if they're going to apply to armor, because it's like, how do you brick armor? You know, just you're wearing the armor and then all of a sudden it just falls off your body or something like that, right? But yeah, like the pledge items, which is the stuff that you buy from the store, get automatically registered, never lose registration status, so you can always claim it back. So guys, you know, pay to win for kit. Don't worry about buying it in game, just buy it from the store and you'll always be able to get it back. They don't mention whether or not you'll pay a fee for it though, which could be the way that they balance that, because I'll tell you now, like if you don't pay a fee for like getting that stuff, everybody will just buy the armor from the item store, from the pledge store, and nobody will buy shit in game. You only need
Yeah, maybe initially to boost the sales, they do it like that, and then they'll change it to something that makes more sense.
Yeah, so
No, they want to something that boosts even more sales.
yeah,
Yeah, like,
The problem is that armor and weapons was actually a useful money sink in the game.
Yeah, I actually spend hundreds of thousands of credits in armors now, just because I do contested zones and they
That's
die
right.
a lot.
I don't really, like, I have been lately, but when I was doing contested zone runs, I didn't really need to. Like, I had a whole bunch of looted gear. This one's like the good one. The ships in the interior, ships along with their loadouts, decorations, and locker contents can also be registered. Then they can be reclaimed in the state that they were previously registered at ASOP terminals for a price. That's something that we've all been asking for. That's what we want. You know, we want to be able to set up our ship the way that we want and not have to, you know, like fly out of the hangar, run into an invisible asteroid and go, great, 2 hours worth of work that I just put into getting this ship ready has just been undone in 5 seconds. This is good. Charging a fee is exactly what we should be expecting. That said though, the next point about looting and bricked items, does this apply to ship components? Because if you loot a power plant and you put it in your ship and you're like, yeah, I've got this upgraded power plant, you know, it's better than the one that I had before, and I'm now flying around. The person's ship that I got it from, they go, oh, I'm going to reclaim my ship now. Does that power plant get bricked remotely?
If the dead man switch, that's going to be, that'll kill piracy for equipment.
equipment. It seems like they want to prioritize the selling. I mean, yeah, that's what they're thinking of right now. I guess it's just you can sell stuff, but
What's the
equipping
point?
is
Like
nice
the
as well.
prices, unless they rebalance the price.
Yeah, like I'm imagining things need to become stupidly expensive to try and like create these money sinks that they need behind equipment. But what if someone picks up if I pick up someone's gun in the middle of a firefight, does the gun stop shooting? Potentially. Like, that's what we don't know yet. At this point here, whilst looted and or stolen bricked items is no longer usable, you can still sell the item for credits. Like, unless they boost the price back up to something that's actually comparable to making it worthwhile selling, nobody's going to do it. They're just going to leave stuff laying around.
Yeah, it seems like it kind of goes together where it's like, okay, when you reclaim your stuff, you need to pay a price that is kind of significant to re-equip everything, and then it's worth to actually sell it so that it lower your cost of reclaiming everything, basically.
Yeah. You know, with tier 1, you'll no longer respawn with your preserved gear already equipped. This is good. You know, with tier 0, we're going to see groups dead rushing groups where they know they're not going to win, but their goal is just to get one person down. And if they've got the respawn advantage, they'll respawn, run back in, and try and take another person down, and just slowly whittle you down like that. Like for tier 0, for pirate crews, having a med bed nearby is paramount. That's what it's going to come down to. Like, Cutler's Red may come back into the composition just to compensate for this, you know, during tier 0. Then when we get tier 1, it's like, all right, well, just make sure you got extra kit stored on the ship.
Well, tier 0, when you respawn in tier 0, do you still get what ammo you had left back, or is that duplicated?
So they don't
Like
care
it's-
about consumables getting duplicated. So your ammo, med pens, things that like you are just one-time use, they don't care about that getting duplicated. Buy one set, like one loadout of ammo, and then just backspace yourself a couple of times inside your own hangar. Go to your corpse and just loot all the equipped items, because it will allow that to be looted, just not the armor or the weapons that you've got equipped.
Cutlass Red will become a mobile armory, because the second person on the ship is just sitting there killing themselves the whole time and then storing the ammo.
That's right.
But I think it's
During
fair and it's a good idea. because ammo is very cheap anyway, so it's just like making it a bit less cumbersome rather than to having to buy 1,000 rounds of ammo. You don't really care so much about that. To me, it's just a bit of quality of life. I don't think it's really. I think it's nice.
All right, so I'm going to keep the conversation moving forward here. So for tier 2, restoring bricked items and crafting integration. Tier 2 will introduce a way to restore previously bricked items for a price. Important notes: looting and bricked items. Once an item is looted, you will have the option to sell it, dismantle it for crafting materials, or restore it with the potential cost of crafting materials and credits to make it your own. This system creates a viable path for piracy, allowing you to reclaim another player's belongings if you take the necessary steps to legitimize ownership. If an item had a cosmetic applied, restoring it will remove the cosmetic in the process. That's an interesting point. Come back to that. The introduction of the item recovery is a significant step toward making gear persistence more meaningful while maintaining the risk-reward balance of looting. Tier 0 and Alpha 4.1 is just the beginning, and as we further integrate into the broader crafting and insurance systems, we'll be actively refining and updating with the help of your feedback throughout the PTU process and beyond. We'll see you in the verse. Alright, I'm interested to see what the top comment is.
It seems to me like they're doing this to avoid armor and everything being a money sink.
But Tony's saying that it's potentially to try and reduce database stuff.
To me, I was seeing that more as the solution to make sure that people that buy nice cosmetic stuff will actually be able to use them without fear, and this is kind of part of the picture.
So I think that's more the likely case, but there's also like they want to try and reduce the time sink so when it comes to equipping things, buying stuff and all that, is the amount of time that we spend just traveling from location to location. Every second that we can reduce from doing mundane stuff means that we've got that extra second to do the more cool gamey stuff, right?
That's totally fair.
Now, coming back to tier 0, it's a step backwards that CIG is taking so that they can move in this new direction. The problem that I have with it is it's gamifying
risk.
It's taking away a risk aspect to the game that players actually need to invest in their own equipment. Now, all the players who keep running around in sperm suits because they don't want to lose their kit and all that sort of stuff need to just harden the fuck up and get over it. And CIG is partially responsible for this because CIG hasn't implemented a system where all those players who buy this shit from the pledge store can't get their stuff back in a reasonable time frame. All right, they have to either melt the stuff, rebuy it, or if they can't even do that, then they have to wait till the next pack cycle. All the items on the pledge store should literally just be cosmetics. It should just be cosmetics for those armor types. You have to buy the armor in the game, but CIG hasn't done that. They've set it up so it's like, yep, it's just the straight out armor that you're buying. And because of the price that they're charging, they're going to probably maintain that, right? They'll maintain that so that those players who have bought it still feel like they got the value out of it. So if you want to complain about Star Citizen, you know, moving towards pay to win even more, this is another aspect of that. It's like, just buy all the stuff that you need from the pledge store. You can buy nearly all the FPS items there.
Yeah, I mean, to me, what you're saying is like, if for the tier 0, it's completely true. And if they never allow themselves to change their mind, to say, well, actually, we said you would have this weapon, but now you don't have the weapon anymore. You have the skin of this weapon, you know, like all those kind of things. Like if they never change what they sold, yeah, they are a bit stuck. But if they reserve the right to adapt what they sold us, maybe as your next tiers get implemented, it could change away from a pay to win. But right now, yeah,
they'll piss off a lot of people if they do that because of how much those gear packs cost. So it's that situation there where it's like it's dumb because you see in other games people are paying idiotic amounts for skins, right? CIG can sit there and go, well, you know, there's other games that do it, they're way worse than what we are, but they probably won't. See, this tier 0 implementation, the problem that I have with it is like, this is a solution for item recovery, right? Star Citizen is a game of systems that are all integrated into the game that work together. I wouldn't have that much of a problem with this item recovery stuff if the respawning mechanics had some sort of penalty associated with it, right? Like vehicle-based respawn mechanics need to have a penalty now, or else you're going to see people clown card. You're all talking about zerging, and yes, I agree. Like, zerging is going to become a bigger problem, and it's just going to be like, oh, I don't care if I die because I'm just going to come back equipped with all my shit anyway, right? I'm just going to come back all equipped. They can't take all my stuff anyway. You know, like if they don't have a gun and they kill me, they can't take my gun. So I can come back and, you know, well, yeah, I can have another crack at them. There needs to be a penalty introduced to respawning if they're going to do this. You know, we've talked about in the past the green goo, you know, fucking Soylent Green shit, making med beds have to have a consumable so that if people are using it to respawn, that consumable is being utilized so that we don't end up in the Karen situation, because players will do that. They will feel empowered now to be like, all right, I can fight back at least. Even if I'm going to die over and over again, these griefers can't fucking take my stuff, and, you know, I might have a chance of being able to kill them. It's like, all right, well, there's 6 of us there. If you respawn in the bed, we're just going to shoot you, and just keep doing that over and over again. Or as Daff mentioned before, like, just lay down in bed so you can't respawn. But even that can be seen as, you know, griefing, right?
The door could be nice, like using like if you are able to like either break the door or like, you know, remove a fuse or go to the engineering gameplay things and just like actually lock the door. They can respawn. They'll be stuck, you know, in the
that point,
you can turn off life support. If you turn off life support, that shit stops the med base working.
Is that a thing? I didn't think that was a thing.
Yeah, someone told me. That's how you stop it.
I have to have a look at that then. Now, Tier 0 implementation, you know, is open to problems, like creating more problems than what it solves, but this is a step back that COG needs to take to step forward. The win scenarios that is having to soft death Carracks and Polaris is yes.
I think rather than doing this, I think they should just make it cost more to respawn with all your equipment.
Where's that cost coming from though? Tier 1 has that cost. Like, you got to register those items to get back, but there's issues that people have with this system, and like, whilst we're talking about respawning and getting your kid back, there's the other side of it where it's like, well, I want to loot this person's stuff, and all I can take from them is whatever they got in their fucking backpack. And I don't know about you guys, but the amount of people that I've fucking pirated and I've looked into the inventory, you know, their backpack, and I'm like, what the fuck is this person carrying? And they've got, like, you know, all this random piss in there that I don't want, not useful to me.
I'm one of those guys that carries around so much shit to confuse my enemies.
Yeah, that's right. Like, I'm just gonna fill a backpack full of ranter dung, just run around with that. When people kill me, they'll be like, why is this guy carrying a backpack full of ranter dung? Player agency is being removed because of this change. You know, like, you're not really that responsible. You don't need to worry too much about your kid anymore. You don't have to stress about it. You know, people talk about the risk side of it, but it's like, it's not a consideration as for loss. You're not sitting there going, all right, I don't have to worry about losing this stuff if I take this risk, which to a certain degree is okay if it's not gimmicky where, you know, for the Tier 0 implementation, this is gimmicky respawning with all your kit, right? The Tier 1 stuff, a lot of it is what we want. I'm concerned about the looting and the bricked items, or the bricked items component, because that dead man switch, like, I'll bait people with that. I'll leave a weapon there for them to try and pick up, or they'll try and grab my gun, right? And then I'll just reclaim it during the fight, and then it just turns off and they can't use it anymore.
Does that imply they're going to have like a reclaim screen when you respawn, even onto ships? So
with Tier 1, no. What it means is that reclaiming, you will need to visit a location such as your freight elevator to reclaim your registered items. So you got to register what you're wearing so that when you respawn, the shops know what to send to your inventory. It's going to cost credits. Yeah, reclaim for a fee at specific kiosks or freight elevators. So this is good. This brings back the whole money sink. So if you die with your kit and you respawn, you're not wearing it, you've got to go to a kiosk, pay the fee, kind of like expediting a ship claim. That's the way I'm thinking of it here. Like, all right, I got to go back to the ASOP terminal, reclaim my ship, expedite it, pay the fee so I can get it back faster. This is, I've got to go to the item kiosk to get my kit back, and I've got to pay the fee for the convenience of not having to run to the gun shop, run to the armor shop, run to the medical center to buy all the kit, right? This I'm okay with. Everybody should be okay with that, especially the fact that it's going to cost credits.
I think the only issue with it is when we start to talk about things that you can't buy in shops, like P8s and stuff at the moment, you know, like that's where the system breaks down a little.
Well,
when
they've only talked about looting from players, and when they talk about looting, we don't even know if it's based on only player items being looted or NPC items are also included. Because like for the P8s and things like that, you can loot them in the contested zones now. But does that mean that magically at one point you'll be in the middle of a firefight and it gets bricked because the NPC timer for that item counted down, and now it's switched from active, or the dead man switch tripped, and you're no longer able to use it, right?
God, I hope not. I'm thinking the dead man switch will probably be on some sort of predictable timer, like an hour or something like that. So I don't think it'll be like they'll be able to go in their overglass and do it.
Well, that would actually be an elegant solution, is a time-based dead man switch.
Yeah.
But
I reckon
NPC
that
stuff,
would do
I
something.
think it should just not be a thing. Like, I'm
No,
not
the
a,
layers. No.
it's already explained.
It'll be a thing.
Once an item is looted, it will remain usable until the original owner reclaims it or marks it as stolen. At that point, a dead man switch is activated, meaning it will cease to function after a period of time. So it could be...
Yeah, okay. So you might get a timer on your screen counting down that sort of your weapon's fucking bricked in 30 minutes or something.
I want it to, like, start heating up and your guy just drops it. You can't pick it up. Or, explodes in your hand like the fucking lawgiver from Judge Dredd.
I hate everything about it. I don't like the bricking system. I don't like
Yeah,
it. Seems like such a heavy-handed solution to this problem.
Well, I'll come around to the commentary that I want to make about that. But, I don't care about selling looted items. And this is part of the problem, is like the cartel just got shafted with this because they sell looted items.
Yeah.
So what the fuck now? What, like, they've just had an entire revenue stream just taken away from them.
I mean, tier 3, there's a way around it where you can take your bricked item and you can take it and do what I've started thinking of as the unbricking ritual, whatever that's going to be.
Tier 2, restoring items and crafting integration. So this is essentially being able to take an item, break it down into crafting components, or being able to take an item and do what CIG is talking about, ships. Being able to claim somebody else's ship as your own, and this is the item equivalent, right?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? The item equivalent to remapping your ship's transponder code or whatever the sci-fi trope is for that one, yeah.
I don't care for this whole bricking thing. I think that's dumb. But I believe that, and this may be the reason why people are getting this impression about it being a database thing, that COG needs some sort of system where items can't be duplicated.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though each item has its own unique identifier. A player who owned a P8 AR getting killed will drop that right now. You'll be able to pick it up. They won't be able to get that back. Under the tier 0 system, if he didn't add, like the whole clause about equipped items not being lootable, they would drop that P8 AR. I would be able to pick it up. They would respawn with one. But now we've got 2 items that belong to the same player. However, they're only supposed to have 1. And this is, I guess, to prevent the insurance fraud type thing where people are just backspacing over and over again with pledge gear. Can't do that now. So this is to stop that item duplication, right?
Yeah, exactly. It is.
Depends on what the repairing ritual is, because if it's like going into your inventory and right mouse clicking on it and say repair, well then what will happen is people will just daisy chain killing themselves.
I think they're going to make it like you have to take it to a stolen item vendor place that's known in the verse as well, because I think the other thing that they're thinking about is, here's an opportunity for Bob McSpaceDad to come and get his looted item back as well, right? You've stolen it from him, he really likes it, he knows now where you have to take it. You have to take it to the unbricking vendor so you can unbrick it, right? So now he can get his mates and he can go and wait there for you,
But why would he bother doing that if he's already got it back?
Here's the thing, is that they don't need to under the tier 1 system. So
that's true.
Under tier 1's thing, players can register their equipped items, which can be reclaimed for a fee at specific kiosks or freight elevators. So that person will be able to reclaim that item. They don't need to track you down to get it back.
They don't need to. No, you're quite right.
The item that you've taken from them, though, if you want to be able to continue using it, you go, wow, this is actually a really cool fucking gun. I like it. I want to keep using it. That's when you go do the fucking ritual to bloody,
unbrick it.
Unbrick it.
People will never go to the weapon shop because after about a month of gameplay, they'll have a single gun in the game.
They won't need to.
So I did come up with a solution to this problem. It's on Spectrum. And it just goes back to asking what's the original problem, right? And the original problem is he sold fucking items instead of skins. And now they have to come up with all this convoluted shit about why, like, you get your items back. And they're jumping through hoops to try and avoid infinite item duplication. I mean, really what they need to do is just say, okay, all these items are now skins. And then what you do is you say, okay, if you want to get your subscriber armor back, what you do is you bring another set of armor of the same equivalency, like light armor, to your hanger, and you put it in the box and you select I want this pattern on it, and it applies the skin to it, and then you fuck off out into the verse. And if you lose it, well, you go and get another set of light armor and you take it back to your hanger and you reskin it again, and out you go. And then they don't have to go through all this faff. Each item in the verse remains completely 100% unique. It's never duplicated. I loot it, I reskin it how I want. This other guy loots it off me, he reskins it how he wants, and the items just get like passed around. There's no, there's no need for all this faff. It's a problem entirely of CIG's own making, because they're like, hey, let's sell items with no idea how item like return is going to work, and it turns out there's a good reason people don't sell items in like MMOs and shit. They sell skins because of all these problems. Fucking hell.
So I'm just going to catch up on chat first here. The Sousy says, the way I see a better solution, if we had a little crafting bench like the ones in the pyro hangars, just make sub gear from materials there as some entry level crafting. I think the main issue that I have with this is their tier 0 implementation, how it can be, it's gimmicky and it can be gamed, right? It's gimmicky, can be gamed in a way that it sways game encounters in a way where like you don't have to put much thought into how you kit yourself out. As long as you got kit, if you die, you don't need to worry about losing stuff. You don't need to worry about your opponent taking things from you that benefits them. So this is where I talk about dead rushing. Like the entire intent is just to bullet sponge your opponent, respawn, come back with your kit. This isn't the end goal though. It's just a tier 0 implementation, so there's going to be a bit of pain, but this is where I keep saying, it's a step backwards to go forwards. I think CIG does need to do more though to try and prevent that dead rushing thing, and I have never talked about the implementation of any sort of currency for respawning, so like they haven't sat there and gone med beds require that medical goo. I mentioned it before. I believe like if they're going to do this, they should introduce that as well. Like it's like all vehicle med beds have some sort of currency that's required to respawn on, so that if you're respawning on med beds, you can't do it forever, right? Because I can tell you now, this is just going to get abused. And if orgs sit there and go, oh, but like we like to organize scrims and we don't want to have all this sort of stuff, like just deal with it. You guys were dealing with before with having extra kit laying around, or you guys just respawning and running back out to grab their kit. There needs to be like penalties associated with medbed respawning. Temporary HP debuffs when you respawn, so it costs less to kill. Even then though, like you're still at that disadvantage where you're expending resources to kill them and they're expending nothing. Like a viable tactic would be to just keep charging at whoever you're fighting. As long as you got a respawn nearby, keep charging at them. They run out of bloody bullets, you've still got all your stuff when you respawn next. The tier 0 stuff. Like it's gimmicky, it's gamey, and it's gonna happen unless CIG does something about vehicle medbeds.
It's a bit disappointing really that they're even talking about implementing another tier 0 system when they just said they were going to stop doing that, giving us like half-baked systems, like they should like give it to us on PTU, like on its own branch or something. Like let us test it and then go work on it and bring it back when it's tier 1 or tier 2 for the PU. Like I don't want to go through a month of like some gimmicky half-baked looting system, or 2 months or 6 months.
I guess that's where like CIG really needs to be called out on, like the item recovery stuff. I know a lot of people are looking at that and they're going, oh, you're taking away full loot, and to a certain extent, yeah, full loot is going away with this. It kind of comes back in tier 1, but then you've got this whole brick state that items can be put into, so the full loot aspect is like semi loot, like you get it but you can't do anything with it. It's gonna stop working for you, so you just sell it. And it's like, well, I'm not even going to bother doing that. Like the only reason why I'll pick up somebody's kit is because I don't have it, or I just want that item. Like if I really need FS kit, I'll just go fucking buy it myself, right? Like I'm not like these fucking Care Bears who will sit there and go, oh, I don't want to lose my Gucci kit and bloody the stuff, my pledge items and stuff like that. I don't want to have to wait until the next patch because I want to be able to walk around all dripped out. Some people, they're like that, and if that's what you like, bloody, you need to play more full loot games to learn to detach away from that sort of stuff. But once again, CIG could solve that problem by converting all the armors and weapons and stuff like that into skins that get applied to those items. And you're right, Lemming, what CIG has done is to try and solve for a problem so that they can continue selling items on the store.
Yeah, and that's the danger, right? Is that whatever they implement will have some vague pay-to-win flavor that will leave a bad taste in everyone's mouth. Like, the guy who lost his items has to travel less far to get them back versus someone else, you know, like it'll just be that little bit of pay to win that they just kind of can't get around because of their own desire to sell stuff.
Yeah, well, they need to, you know, keep the lights running, right? Chris's bloody yacht. Diesel's gone up in price, all right? Marine diesel's gone up in price. His yacht is, you know, it's hard to keep one yacht fueled, let alone two. So, you know, fucking Chris has got to get that money in somehow. But
I think he underestimates how much money people will give him for skins.
Yeah.
It's just, he doesn't understand. He's got to look at like Counter-Strike and shit. People paying hundreds of dollars for some shiny knife, you know, like get with it, Chris.
But there's a lot of people in this community where this is literally their first type of game that involves anything like that. So when they've paid all that money, they're thinking, oh yeah, this is a reasonable price if they have, and they don't know anything about other games, right? So they're not aware of the Counter-Strike skins, or you know how ridiculous that is.
There is a way of solving this problem. So what they could do is make it so that all weapons or like personal items and stuff, pretty much anything in the game can be made from a blueprint, but you need like RMC and all the ingredients to do it. Maybe for weapons it's just like a single ingredient you can stockpile in your hangar. And so for people who have bought the items in the store, they get the blueprint and they get their custom design, and all they have to do is keep up the supply of RMC in their fabricator.
I think the reason CIG haven't gone down that route is because that is an avenue by which you can then use that blueprint to make items for all your org mates and stuff, which I think they're trying to avoid because again, like reduces their customer base for selling shit, you know?
But they've already done that, right? Because if you buy the item in a game for 3,000 Alpha UEC, that's nothing really. So the whole idea of keeping items is irrelevant.
Now it's not the crafting. I mean, like they don't. The other thing is they're probably going to want to use those blueprints as rewards that they can dangle in front of you to get you to go do content. And so if you can just buy the item on the website, and it also gives you the ability to then make 100 of them and put them up for sale in the game. Like I think it's a rabbit hole they didn't want to go down.
Yeah, so like their tier 1 implementation is to try and stop that from happening. You know, the whole bricked item state, but also having to pay a fee to reclaim the items.
I wonder what that fee is going to be.
Ideally, it'll be the cost of what you would pay if you bought it brand new.
But tell me again, what about special items like maybe quest reward items or reputation items, all that stuff? Do you
haven't even gone
should you
down
get
that.
it back?
Nobody
talked
knows
about that.
But you do, yeah. I mean, anything that's account bound, you'll be able to. It's basically a system for bound and non-bound accounts, right? It's just that your account bound stuff is pre-registered. Anything you loot in game, you can take it and register it.
You can infer that, but when the language used is pledge items are auto-registered, whereas account-bound stuff that you get from, like, let's look at the Fight for Pyro thing, the Ripper. That is an account-bound item that you never pledge for.
All right, it's fair. I think we're assuming that.
Yeah,
they don't outright say it.
We're inferring that that's the case, and I think more than likely it's going to be the case, but they don't state that. So it's a legitimate question, and it's like, is that a thing? But yeah, like the whole, and the point that we're talking about now of like buying stuff from the pledge store and then unbricking it, you know, doing the ritual to unbrick that item so that you can then use it, means that they actually talk about this, where is it? If the item had a cosmetic applied, restoring it will remove the cosmetic in the process. So if you took the red alert armor, for example, okay, like those armors exist in the game, the Morozov armor exists in game, there's a red alert version of it, black and red. If you looted that from a player, did the unbricking ritual, the red and black armor's gone. It's just regular Morozov. However, the player who lost that item would be reclaiming it with the cosmetic.
Correct.
Applied.
But you know what's weird about that? That implies the existence of cosmetics that are separate to items. In fact, okay, speaking about inferring things, that section didn't seem clear whether they were talking about ships or items, because items, like at the moment, don't have separate skins. You know what I mean? So it's a really weird sentence. Either they're planning separate skins for items, or they're talking about ships. and I couldn't tell which one from the language they used.
So
Well, it might also just be a way of speaking. Maybe they are actually different items, but they have some kind of hierarchy between them. So they are not real skins, they are different items, but they work like if they were a skin. Because they give you the parent, like the mother of or whatever, you know, like instead of the red alert, even though they are different items.
I imagine CIG is probably cooking something up in the background, and this is like whoever's written this up has is assuming that we have knowledge that we probably don't have, in that the CIG may have worked on a cosmetic slot for armor, right? So that is the case. That is more than likely the case. We're supposed to be able to have like org armors and things like that. My concerns with a lot of this though is like, how does infiltration work? How do I disguise myself as being a member of a different, or if I was doing the PvE side of things, like pretending that I'm Ninetales? Is this only applicable to stuff that players get? And the way that NPCs are treated is like, oh, well, they're NPCs, I don't fucking care, right? And my concern about that sort of delineation between how players are treated and how NPCs are treated is that, like the complaining that was put forth about losing items that has resulted in this sort of system being created leans into the potential of CIG kowtowing to the Care Bear demands of no player damage in certain situations, or criminal charges against NPCs aren't as serious as criminal charges against players. You know what I mean? Like, we end up in this situation where they try and discourage players attacking each other within certain rule sets, but if you do it to the NPCs, it doesn't matter. Rules for thee, but not me type situation. Because a lot of this, can be seen as trying to deal with technical issues and the design implementation of how item recovery works. It should just be a simple thing, and we deal with the fact that like if somebody dies and they've got looted items, it's considered stolen, and if you get caught wearing stolen items, you're a criminal. Like, that's how it works in the real world. All these players who run around, annihilating bunkers full of Ninetales and then picking up their armor and then running around with it on. Security forces should be pulling them up and going, why are you wearing stolen shit? Here's a fine. We're taking that stuff off you. You shouldn't have that. The whole idea of selling items as well should be the situation where, depending on the circumstances, some items you can sell, some items you shouldn't. If you're going through and wiping out bloody bunkers full of criminals, that's all evidence. You should be taking it to security forces to turn in, and they may have rewards that they'll pay out, to encourage that, but it's not like you're selling items. But if we're only talking about, like player item recovery, then we've got a completely different rule set to what we're dealing with NPCs potentially. But COG doesn't talk about that. Xylo follow-up with responded to somebody. Master Knife says, is this all gear or just subscriber stuff? Xylo says, all gear. There's a specific note for any pledge obtained items in the tier 1 section, and then he repeats it. I am concerned about the duration of tier 1, correction, tier 0, and I'm concerned if CIG is responding to player feedback and this is this part of their solution that works with the design intent as well, and they've updated their design intent based on player feedback, that we get to tier 0 and then players just start screaming, we don't want you to go to tier 1. Players sitting there going, oh, I bought this stuff on the pledge store, I shouldn't have to pay a fee in game to get it back,
But it seems like they don't really have the choice of going forward anyway, even if there is some complaint initially, because otherwise there would be no economy, there would be nothing, and the game will kind of die. I mean, you could assume that at least. That there need to be a way to spend money, they need stuff. You need to have stuff to do. But people will complain because it's not convenient initially.
Yeah, they're gonna, like, something that we'll probably see is the need to have multiple pieces of, like, multiple copies of kit, of the same kits in an inventory, so that you can quickly re-equip your stuff will go away. So the point about database load being reduced through that sort of system, I can see that benefiting them, but like, I kind of like that idea. It's like, you've got to prepare ahead of time. What a lot of this does is it takes a lot of that preparation work out of your hands. Some of it makes sense, like ships and interiors and setting a ship up for any sort of op, regardless of what you're aiming to do, is a massive pain in the ass. It takes so long because the system of doing it is physicalized. There's no sort of UI that you're interacting with where you can just go, yeah, drag this here, here, and here. It's, you've got to go grab the items, You've then got to go onto the ship. You've got to then place those items physically into those locations or interact with the inventory of those storage containers to drag and drop those items in there. And as I said before, it's frustrating. You spend like a couple of hours, getting all that together. And it's not only for you, but it's also for other people. And then you fly out of the hangar and hit an asteroid and, hours of work undone. Well, here's the thing, Hex. You'll be able to set it up once, register the ship with all those items in it. And then if it blows up randomly, you can just reclaim the ship with all the items on it. And the point that they make here, for a price, this is the thing that I think CIG needs to reinforce is the cost. Like there has to be cost. And this is why I don't like what they're doing in tier 0, because there's no cost. All this is like how we had it before, back in the early 3.x days, where you could just respawn, come back in, do all that stuff. Just keep dying, respawn, repeat. And, dead rushing objectives and things like that. Not the permanent thing, but yeah. The step backwards to go forwards, but I strongly believe that CIG should be or implementing a cost for respawning on medbeds.
Yeah, absolutely they should. That's the first thing people are going to abuse, is they're already talking about it. Setting up medbeds to just spawn you with freaking infinite respawns. Yeah,
that's right. As far as I'm concerned, a medbed, like you shouldn't even spawn in with that kit on. You should spawn in and have to then interact with the storage of the fucking medbed to pull your kit out, to slow you down so that you don't end up Zerg rushing.
Well, you notice on the Polaris, there's lockers in the medbay rooms.
Yeah, that's right. Already working on tier 1, they said, why not just skip tier 0 to all together and wait another 2 months? See, and this is actually a point, I'm glad you brought that up, Tony. This is a point that I wanted to talk about with regards to the feature implementation streams that Chris Roberts was talking about at the start of the year, where it's like, they're not going to just bring things in piecemeal, they're going to implement it, when it's done. And as we've all pointed out, this is tier 0 bullshit again happening, right? And I don't think it should be happening like that. Based on what we've been told, it's not supposed to be happening like that. But it could be, and CIG will probably gaslight us in this regard. They'll be like, oh no, that's not what we meant. We actually meant it this way. You guys were wrong. Pretty well versed in fucking reading the English language, and the words that you guys use mean this, right? So if you're going to tell us something, you need to be more clear with what you're telling us, because that's what they will end up doing. It's like, oh no, that's not what we meant. Like the branches, for this feature set, this will be the tier 0 feature, and then, we'll test it through the Evocati phase, then bring it in, and that's considered, a sprint cycle complete. But that's, that feature done. And then when we go to the next tier, even though we're not supposed to be doing that, I don't believe Evocati is the best group to be testing this, because we're not even allowed to do
audience.
Well, it's not only that, it needs the type of audience that plays the game like it's a game, as opposed to a lot of Evocati testers where they're just testing functionality, and then they only test the things that they're really interested in, and they only test it the way that they want to test it. Full loot stuff, for example, won't get tested against players because we're not allowed to do PvP in Evocati. It has to be consensual. So this whole principle of what we're talking about now with the tier 0 fucking Zerg dead rushing will never be experienced in Evocati unless you're able to get like a stack of Evocati PvPers together, which is pretty fucking difficult to do, and then you have this happen naturally, right? So there's aspects of Evocati testing that don't really put this through its paces, and it's always been a limitation of Evocati. It's like, does it function with this group of people? Yes, that's really what it is. But did you guys find something, game breaking that you guys can tolerate that the majority of the community can't? Yeah, we did. Okay, well, we'll go and fix that. Build's coming down. Evocati can't stress test. There's not enough active Evocati to pull it off. This item recovery stuff, though, is frustrating from a certain degree. Like, I don't like their tier 0. As far as I'm concerned, like, tier 0 should just stay in the PTU. Don't even bother bringing it into the live build. I would say tier 1 is where they should actually bring it into the live build if they want to do that. Ideally tier 2. They didn't talk about criminals keeping gear. Yeah, well, regardless if you do criminal gameplay loops or lawful gameplay loops, we're all still players, and this is item recovery stuff, so I imagine that they'll still have the criminal variant of it, and then they'll try and justify, this is how we make being a criminal more difficult. It costs you more if you die. right? That's how we make it more difficult, because then you got to make more credits. And then people complain that criminals make more credits through their missions, and by taking from other players, then all those lawful Care Bears go, but it's supposed to be hard. You guys shouldn't be making so much. It's like the difficulty is the reward is based on the risk that we're taking. If we're going to have to pay more, then we're going to have to make more, aren't we?
So what game are we going to play next when this turns into a Care Bear game?
Go to Elite Dangerous. They're getting colonization in the game, apparently.
Oh, did you see the meme from Elite Dangerous on Star Citizen? Like in this game, elevators don't kill you. It was a tweet.
Should just show them the ship elevators and go, watch me walk to a ship elevator. This one didn't kill me yet.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, that's a completely different problem though. Like in terms of like item recovery, Star Citizen, I said it before, but Star Citizen's a game of systems. So item recovery is its own system. What you're talking about there is how item recovery interacts with reputation. So at its core level, item recovery is just about getting your stuff back. Whereas reputation influencing item recovery, like that could be tier 3 for all we know, but they've only gone as far as telling us about tier 2. I'm frustrated with this to a certain degree. What they've done is essentially killed off an entire component of what the cartel does until we get to, actually no, it won't even matter for tier 2. So player trading, yeah, they've just killed off player trading in terms of items. You'll need to use shops to do it. So craft the stuff, open a shop. And that's the problem with the way that CIG releases this information. Like, this is piecemeal information that can affect a lot of other gameplay. Because this is the description of one system. It's like, oh, but, you know, like, CIG's just talked about this one system. We're all looking at going, okay, well, what about everything else that it interacts with, right? How does that affect the game? How does that affect our ability to play the game? I've already described the medical bed, the respawning issues that will come about because of tier 0. We've just literally pointed out the, you know, player economy when it's come to player trading of weapons and armor and gear and stuff like that, essentially being killed off. So we need to wait for CIG now to introduce the player-owned shop system before we're able to re-engage in player trade. I'm gonna just call it there on the reaction now to that particular thing. It's interesting. I think a lot more feedback needs to be given on it. I know there's a lot of Spectrum posts that are already going up.